Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. JustusRStone here. Pardon my voice, I'm a little bit sick. Today I'm going to be talking about the novel Legend of the Galactic Heroes. This one is volume number 1 called Dawn, and it is by Yoshiki Tanaka. Now, let's just get this out of the way. This is not a light novel, which I know is a little weird because the channel is basically manga and light novels, but I've got a reason. This novel was actually written back in the 1980s. It was originally published in Japan in the 1980s, and there is a massive anime series based on these series of books. There's 10 novels in the series. The anime itself was comprised of about 110 episodes, and then there were a couple of, like, movies and stuff mixed in there. As far as I know, there's also currently discussions that they may be redoing it or doing a new movie. It seems a little bit nebulous depending on where you check out, but apparently Legend of the Galactic Heroes is returning to the anime world not too long from now. So this is the official English version we're finally getting here in the English-speaking world. Now, Viz Media, they've done it under their, I guess it's Haiku Soro. It's their sort of imprint that they do for novels. Now, the story is that they've licensed the first 3 of the 10 novels. They're going to see how these ones sell. And if they do well enough, then they're going to do the rest. If they don't, then, well, I guess we're kind of out of luck. So, if you read this book and you like it, by all means, please buy it and buy the future books in the series so that we get the whole thing. So let's get down to the actual review. So the book itself is about the universe thousands of years from now, and there are 2 warring empires. Well, one is the Galactic Empire, which is a monarchy-driven society. The other is the Alliance of United Worlds, or they've got some big fancy title, but essentially they are a democratic society. So you have 2 ideologies in terms of how societies should be run at war with each other. Now, the book focuses on 2 main characters. There is Yang Wengli in the Democratic side. There is Reinhard von Lohogram on the... I probably butchered his name, and I apologize. But anyway, Reinhard is on the Galactic Empire, on the monarchy side. And essentially, it focuses on this period of time where each of these men, they're both pretty young at the time. They're, 20s to early 30s. They are rising in terms of their power and influence within their various spheres, and it is about how they are coming into conflict and how they're involved in sort of some massive conflicts that shape eventually the history of the universe, hence the legend part of the story. Now, it's very much a space opera. This is a relatively harder sci-fi story than what you're going to get in a lot of other light novels. When the book opens up with like a 29-page prologue about the history of the universe and how we got to this moment as it begins, it's a little bit different than your average light novel, which usually just jumps right into the story and gets running. If you're a little bit afraid of hard sci-fi in terms of thinking that, oh my god, there's going to be a lot of techno-babble and all this kind of stuff, don't worry about it. It's not that bad. It's really not. It's much more, I would say, the maturity in it lies in the politics and in the way that these 2 characters are both manipulated and manipulate the systems that they're involved in. It's about battlefield tactics. It's about, like I said, these warring ideologies. It's very much like a story that, well, basically he did base it on historical points on Earth, but he's now applied it to this sort of science fiction. So it gives us this feeling of being a universal type story. Humanity, for whatever reason, always finds a way to be at war with each other, and so that's exactly what we get, even though we've supposedly progressed so far that we occupy hundreds of worlds and number in the hundreds of billions. What's cool about this is that we have 2 very separate characters. Reinhard is very driven and very determined and wishes for power. On the other hand, we have Yang, who is anything but. The only reason he's really in the military is because he can't find a talent for himself outside of the military. In fact, he tries to use, as the book progresses and he gains some notoriety, he actually wants that notoriety to be used so that he can retire and live a peaceful and normal non-military life. So we have two characters who are driven by very different ideals and very different views of the world and where they want to operate within the world. And it's funny because in some ways I feel, because we're a democratic society, well, okay, I live in a democratic society, I don't know who all's watching the video, so if you think if you're in a democratic society that you're going to be on the side of the alliance, but at the same time they don't shy away from the fact that there can be a lot of corruption in a democratic society. And on the flip side, with Reinhard, he does have motivations that you can sort of get behind and you can sort of support. So in a sense, even though you get the idea that there is kind of a little bit of a weight towards these are the bad guys, these are the good guys, there is definitely reasons that you kind of can root for both of these characters at the same time. Now, the one thing that I will say, I mean, it's not so much a complaint, but really, I mean, we have these really two very fleshed out characters. Yang and Reinhard are very fleshed out. They both have very distinct mannerisms and such, ways they speak, way they act, so forth. There are a ton of other characters in this book. Like, I have to give credit to the author. I mean, he must have charted out, like, the operations about who is in what position, who is running what ship, and so forth, because there are a plethora of names mentioned throughout the book in terms of this person does this and this person does that. And most of them we don't get much of a feel for. There's a couple that fit some very specific archetypal type roles, but overall they aren't very fleshed out. They're really just there to serve the purpose for that moment. So this is very much just Reinhard and Yang's story in this volume number 1, which is totally fine because they are great characters. I found this book very refreshing after reading a whole bunch of light novels. As much as I love light novels, it was kind of cool to have something that felt a little bit deeper, a little bit meatier, that spoke to larger themes and ideas. It wasn't just pure entertainment or candy for the mind. There was actually things that made you think. I really enjoyed at one point, and it's early on in the book, this isn't really a spoiler, but there's this point where Yang is sitting in his ship in the middle of this battle, and he has this sort of epiphany where he thinks, I'm sitting at the center of history beginning. And it was so interesting to me, and I thought it was a great thing now that I've read this first volume. I thought it was really cool because as you read through the book, you really do understand that, yes, that's exactly what's happening, and that's exactly this sort of snapshot and this point and reason why we're joining these characters at this point in this story. So overall, Legend of the Galactic Heroes, I really enjoyed. Now, is there anything in here that is going to feel super unique now that we've had many years of a lot of different intricate stories both in the fantasy and sci-fi realm? Maybe not, but if you are a huge anime fan and you're a huge fan of light novels and you're looking for something that's maybe a little bit different and has a little bit more substance to it, then I can heartily recommend Legend of the Galactic Heroes. I have to say I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. I thought the book was going to be maybe a little bit dry. I'm not usually a massive fan of harder sci-fi or sci-fi operatic type stories, but this one I found very engrossing. I thought the characters were really interesting, and I enjoyed even the politics and the ways that they played out so differently under these two separate systems and ideologies. So those are my thoughts on volume number 1 of Legend of the Galactic Heroes. Thank you so much for watching the video and putting up with my scratchy, sort of nasally, deepy voice. Hopefully it'll be better next time. So, and speaking of next time, my next video I'm going to be reviewing the light novel Durarara number 3. So, That'll be in my next light novel review video, where I will return to a true honest-to-goodness light novel. I hope you'll join me for it. Click on subscribe both above my head or down in the description so that you don't miss any of my future videos. Of course, I've got my playlists over on the left, and also link to the books that I write, because, you know, I don't just like to read them, I like to write them. Thank you again for watching. I hope to see you in my next video. Until then, bye-bye for now.